Hey, my name's Liam. I run a six-figure AI consulting business, and by the title of this video, as you might have seen, we're going to be going over what it actually takes to run a modern AI consultancy and the full blueprint that I've gone through and want to share with everybody here today. And so to start off with a quote, AI consulting only works when you understand the business deeper than the business understands itself. And what this really means is that when you're going to build a workflow or an automation for a company, the best thing to do is to actually understand their business clearly, because you are building for them and not just handing them an automation that you assume works. You're going to want to sit down with the actual employees, the people doing those tasks, those boring tasks, and you're going to want to figure out how can we build this so that it suits exactly what they're currently doing and structure it in a way that they can adopt it easily. Because most of the people that you'll be working with have not used AI much before. And maybe just they've used ChatGPT or Gemini or something like that, but they have not, ran through how to use a workflow and how to use a system that you could build. And it could be very complex. So the best thing to do is to build it with the employees in mind. And so the agenda for today's call is a few things: why most agencies fail, the lean consulting model, and why we do 3 to 4 calls before we do any building, why this model works using the Hormozy value equation method, the pricing structures explained. There's a few options that you can choose from, but there's obviously one that I'll discuss at the end of the video, outreach and acquisition strategies and what actually works with that, hiring and your first delegation, retention, and system reliability, and why this model that we've done with consulting changed everything for us over the last 3 months. And so why do most AI agencies fail? Well, the key lesson here is that they'll try to build before they understand, they automate without mapping the workflow, and they solve the wrong problem a lot faster. And when this happens, you look a lot like the hamster wheel on the screen right now. And why is that? Well, it's because they don't actually sit down with the people who are going to be using the automation. They don't actually understand how the business works, and they end up building something based on assumptions instead of reality. And so when you build something based on assumption, you're building something that they think might be cool, but not what they actually need. And clients rarely ever know what they want, but they always know what they hate. So if you actually go after the things that the business absolutely hates doing, that's usually going to be the place you need to look and build something. Because if you build something they want, it might not actually be the build that they will value at the end of the day once it's built. And everyone oversells AI outputs, but nobody digs into the real operational bottlenecks. Everybody's selling the flashy AI voice receptionists, the AI chatbots, but no one digs into the back-end, boring, tedious automation tasks that they're spending 6 to 8 hours on beyond. And these are the ones that are going to create real ROI in the long term, rather than something flashy like an AI voice caller that might not even work half the time. And the shortage isn't AI, it's AI that works in real companies with real systems. And so what is AI consulting and specifically the lean consulting model, where I talked about 3 to 4 calls? The core differentiation between what I mean by consulting and why it's lean consulting is that we're not trying to be Deloitte. We're not trying to be one of the big consulting firms where we're spending 6 months with them just to hand them a 60-page PDF. We're working with them over 3 to 4 calls to sit down with a few specific people to then map out and completely understand what we're building before we actually go ahead and get the development team on this kind of work. And so what call one usually looks like is it's with the CEO or the strategy lead, someone who's high up C-suite level. And we're going to look at what are the goals, what are the plans, and what are the capacity and challenges involved in something that we could be building for them. And this is kind of where we get the high level overview of what might drive the rest of the business going forward. And call number 2 usually looks at the operator or the person doing the work, so the actual employees that are doing the day-to-day tasks every single day. And what you'll be able to find is the things that they absolutely hate doing. You'll be able to find a lot of the times the edge cases that they know the most about, because there's probably a lot of stuff in the tasks that they're doing that have edge cases, and they're the ones who are going to be able to provide that to you, as well as their current tool stack and frustrations that they have going on their day-to-day. So whether they're using Google Sheets or Excel or whatever they're using, this is kind of where you get the general understanding of okay, here's the kind of tech stack we're going to be building around generally, because again, you're building it for them because they're going to be using it. And call number 3, I've put it in there as call number 4. There's 2 of them, but call number 3 is the manager. So the person who oversees the work getting done. For this kind of call, you're looking at like scalability, oversight, and rollout, because they're going to be the ones who most of the time manage and maintain how it's working, and kind of they're the ones who need to understand to make changes if necessary, because the person who's using it is only going to be using the system, and the person who's overseeing the system and how it's being used and how it's working will then report back to the CEO with all the metrics and things, but they're the ones who are going to be like in hindsight looking over it. And call number 4, the last one, being the IT and systems. So we're trying to gain access, we're trying to get passwords, data ownership, and we're just kind of working with the IT department or the person who kind of manages the APIs and credentials, because this is obviously a very important part. When working with the business, you need to make sure that you set it up properly with someone who knows what they're doing, because it can be an absolute nightmare. And I'm sure most people who run an AI consultancy or AI agency right now know that setting up credentials is an absolute nightmare. And the way to streamline this is to set up a call, pre-set up as part of the consulting to get this done. And that way we knock it out of the way right before the builds, and then we can get going swiftly. And so this keeps the builds from failing because they're designed, again, around the employee that's going to be using it every day, the employee that's spending that time on that task. It's built around them specifically. And the CEOs describe the future. So essentially the CEO is the one who has the vision of it, and they're the ones who are like, yeah, this is kind of what's happening over here. And the operator describes the present. So the operator being the employee, he understands the everyday tasks. He's the one who's doing it. And the CEO just kind of wants to guide and see the vision of the future. And our job as the AI consultant is to merge those two together and mesh them so we can create a comprehensive AI system that actually works and drives ROI. And so why does this model work? Well, I specifically built it around the Hormozi value equation. And I seriously did this. And so value equals dream outcome multiplied by the perceived likelihood of achievement divided by time delay multiplied by effort plus sacrifice. So looking at this from a holistic standpoint in our business, what it looks like is the client's dream outcome is measurable ROI in their operations, time savings, bottom line efficiency, and getting AI into their business, right? In today's day and age, that's a huge thing. And that multiplies by the perceived likelihood of achievement, which is we're doing the consulting first so that we prevent a failed build, a failed pilot AI system. And now we're dividing that by the time delay, which is on our side, a 10 to 15 day sprint. Now, we're not running a 60-day or a six month consulting thing, and we're also not building multiple month development projects. We're getting our foot in the door quickly, and we're building trust with the business to be able to help them further and become their partner however you want. And the last one being multiplied by effort and sacrifice. Now, we want to take on the technical setup and the overhead involved, and the client just approves of it. So once we've approved and mapped everything out, here's the tools, here's what the project's going to look like. We say, hey, we're going to take on OpenAI APIs, we're going to take on the Airtable APIs, we're going to set everything up, do all the plumbing work, and then you're just going to approve of it. And that takes away the effort and sacrifice involved on their end so that they don't have to take on anything. It's all on you. And this is the whole equation and why it's so valuable to a business, because we've literally checked all the boxes that provide value to a business. And the quote I want to leave off with is, the more risk we remove and the more certainty we provide, the more valuable the same build becomes. And so getting on to the pricing structures now, I want to explain a few options that you might include in your prices for your services. Now, there are 4 here, and starting with the first one, which is a low-cost monthly maintenance retainer. So this one you can maybe charge $500 to $1,000 for the build, and then anywhere from $500 to $2,000 for a monthly retainer. And this is a very predictable method to run with. And the con of this, though, is that it reduces the perceived value because you're charging such a low amount up front. It's usually that they might even say no because they're like, oh, does this even have any value off the bat? And so when to use this is probably after the POC. So once you've actually delivered some value, this would be a good option to deliver a sort of smaller, reduced cost for the next build, the second build, and then a monthly maintenance because you will have built more than one system for them now. And so option number 2 is more of a fixed cost, somewhere around $4,500 to $8,500 or even more. And this is a good, fast, clear, and low risk kind of pricing model. But this does require very tight scoping, obviously because it's a fixed cost and you're not charging anything afterwards for the build. So it needs to be very well scoped, but that's typical for most builds anyways. And so this is good for kind of the service that we charge where, it's a 10 to 15 day build. We have a tight scope and we know the value that we're going to provide after we do the consulting. And the next one is the AI embedded partner inside of the business. And this is also good, when a business is not only looking to do just one build, they want to do multiple builds and they really want to get ingrained with AI. They really want to start using it to the max that they can. And so this would be a very good pro because then you get a monthly, cap at what you're getting from them. But this does require obviously trust off the bat from them. They need to trust you, see the value they've delivered before to then be like, yeah, I want you to build 2, 3, or 4 more builds inside my business. When to use this might be, after they've seen AI success from your company. So you've delivered some sort of value to them and now they're ready to move forward on you being their partner, right? You may have built 1, 2, or 3 builds for them and now they're like, hey, we literally want to open a department just for you. So this could be a useful way to ask for something like this. It's something that we've been looking into when we've worked with a few businesses for a while. We're considering, moving in to be their in-house department. They can come to us. It's similar to they pay an IT department to be their go-to guy for that kind of stuff. And for someone who wants to really, get into the AI space, they might want you to just be there and ready to go. And the last one being rev share. There's obviously huge upside on this. So companies that are making already a lot of money, if you're charging 10, 20% on, some sort of build that you're doing for them, this is also a really effective way to do this. And this can also be unpredictable. So make sure that when you're doing this, you are charging a rev share for companies that have a good offer and can actually provide value, because otherwise you're going to be stuck with no revenue after you build something. This would be a good kind of pricing model to charge when you're doing like cold email build or a automation where it involves direct revenue, so lead generation, things like that. And so a sprint with a light rate retainer is probably the most scalable and reliable combination today. So something where you do the fixed cost and then you offer the retainer package on hand afterwards. What's important here is that you really explain in detail as to why it makes sense to go with the retainer, because it really does. And I'll get into that later, but it really does make sense to charge for a retainer because of the amount of breakage and changes and how fast AI is moving. You need to be kind of their guy for when things change inside the business and when they change with AI. And so the next thing is build everything first. Retainers always fail because the business doesn't even understand the solution yet. So the thing you've built, they still have to adopt to, and it wasn't even built around their processes or systems. So the people that build first without even understanding what they're doing usually can't get a retainer because the company still needs to figure out what you've just done and built for them. And the last thing being, start with a sprint, earn the right to maintain. That's very critical. And I guarantee you will find success when you understand what they're doing and when they know you understand, because they will now trust you to move forward and build more things for them. And so with outreach and acquisition, what actually works? Well, most AI agencies die here. They chase companies instead of showing what they're actually building. And what I mean by this is nobody knows who you are, right? Even if you have an AI agency and you've got some insane builds, you've got some crazy N8N make.com builds, right? You need to show people what it looks like. How does it work? Why would it provide them ROI, right? You need to put yourself out there, whether it's on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, really doesn't matter. Just get out there, show face, and provide some value talking about educational videos, however you want to do it. Content is the best inbound funnel. I was able to grow my Instagram page to over 15K followers just by using this method, showing what I was building and showing how it provided value to real businesses gave me the opportunity to grow my page. And so next thing is record what you build, not what you say you can build. Because if you actually understand what you've built, you'll know the value behind it and you'll be able to demonstrate that. And calls booked come from demonstrated competence, not hype. The real outreach channels that actually convert are LinkedIn lead magnets with a follow-up sequence. So if you go on LinkedIn and you have an AI built to share some sort of AI knowledge that you have, some sort of value that you can actually provide. If you put that out there on LinkedIn and say, hey, comment X, and I will provide you with some sort of deliverable, some lead magnet, this actually works really well. And I've done it countless times where, I've gotten over 500 to 1,000 comments on my page, and I was able to comment back or message them with the lead magnet and then have a follow-up sequence. So it's tied to an automation that follows up and gets them interested, right? You're basically nurturing them after that. And the next one is warm intros from past projects. So if you are at the stage where you've had projects before, getting the client to give you a warm intro to another client is literally the number one way. Like there's no better way than that to acquire another client, because they've literally told them probably that you are great at what you do and given you a good word. So you have a very high chance at closing that kind of deal. Next one is asking every happy client for a referral. Obviously you should be doing this. Any business knows that referrals are key to continuing that cycle and getting warm leads in your pipeline. And so next being outbound only when you have proof of work. So if you already have proof of an AI offer to sell, this is a good way to start doing cold outreach or ads and other things like that. Because if you're trying to do outbound without having any value to provide or any offer already while you're building your systems, you will get stuck and your outbound will probably not go as planned. And so looking at hiring and your first delegation, your first hire isn't going to be sales. It's going to be technical delivery support. And so why that is because founders get bottlenecked in delivery and not leads. You'll have enough time to post social media content, to create the systems and do outbound. But what you won't have time for as a founder is sitting down, debugging workflows, fixing things, sending client updates, things like that while the workflows are being built. This is something that you need to hire someone. You can find plenty of experts online that can help build these automations, whether it's code, low code, whatever tool you're kind of using or planning to use. You can delegate N8N, Airtable, Supabase, anti-gravity, whatever tools you're using to build these agentic workflows. You can hand that off to that kind of expert and that person, but you still want to own the architecture of mapping it out and making sure that it's aligned with what the client wants. And so the last thing you'll want to do after this is done is, once it's running smoothly, you'll then want to hire a sales rep, someone who can take on the sales calls while you can then focus even more on building the content and driving the systems in your business to maintain it and grow. And so going on to client retention and system reliability, every AI system eventually breaks. Yes, it's true. APIs can change, logins expire, CRMs update, business moves systems, things change, right? And so you don't want to hide this. You want to explain it before the build. This is not something you want to go in to a business and say, hey, we're going to build this, it's going to work flawlessly. And 3 months, if you change CRMs from Monday.com to Go High Level, whatever tool it is, right? They change that, the whole system breaks, and they're expecting it somehow to just magically work. No, you got to tell them that if they change that, that's why you're going to offer the retainer. And they aren't a nice to have their insurance and uptime, right? Because if things change, things break down, OpenAI changes their API, they deprecate GPT 4.1, it's gone now, you were using that in your workflow, then guess what happens? The whole workflow breaks, the client's freaking out and getting mad at you. So you want to make sure that you're saying, hey, this is the reason why. Things change, APIs and AI models change all the time. You can see how fast things are moving in the AI industry. It's wicked, right? And so the better the systems run, the more the client will adopt them. And that literally goes back to all my points about adoption with pricing and things like that. So you want to build it for the person who's going to be using the system, right? You have to think with them in mind, and the adoption will be there. It will be absolutely there every single time. And so this model changed everything for us. We did start as an AI agency. We were building way too fast and not consulting enough. We built cool voice AI callers, voice chatbots, and other things like that, that they can provide value, but it depends on if the company actually needs that, right? We weren't sitting down with their teams, we weren't building with the employees who are doing the work in mind, and we weren't mapping anything out. So we had no idea what we were actually building. And so once we switched to the AI consulting model, everything changed immediately. We saw how fast we could deliver a proof of concept AI build, and we saw how fast we can deliver ROI by sitting down with their team, mapping everything out, building something that works exactly to their standard, and then helping them continuously build more and more. As now they trust us, in those 10 to 15 days, we can then continue to build on that success and work with them for many months. This is why we're getting a ton of retainers now for our business, because we're able to build that trust so quickly and we're able to deliver such a quick win for them. And now clients use the systems when they see them mapped directly into their workflow. At the end of the day, this model is way more enjoyable for us, way more scalable, and way more valuable. And so if you're not already subscribed, please hit that like button and subscribe to my videos. I'm going to be putting out a video once a week for now. And also, if you're a business that is looking for, automation that removes bottlenecks and not just another chatbot, a 10 to 15 day sprint that maps your workflow and builds the solution, and ongoing support for systems that don't break when APIs change, then click the link in the bio to book an AI alignment call, and we'll have a brief chat to see if you're a good fit for our systems. As always, thanks for watching, and peace.